Let's just get right to Project Scorpio. What did you think about that whole conversation about them kind of unveiling?
Well, let's move back to the beginning of the press conference where they announced the Slim.
Right.
And they kick off their press conference with, here's a new Xbox. It's powerful. It's got a lot of terabytes in it.
Sure.
It's coming out this year. It's cheap. And then they show a bunch of games, and then they end the press conference with, here's the new Xbox. It's not the Slim. That thing we just announced is not the only thing you need to pay attention to. And we're not going to give you many details about it, but it's for VR and it's 4K.
I heard it's the best quality pixels you've ever seen.
And it comes out 2017, end of year 2017.
Yeah.
So a lot of people walked out of there just confused, like, what should I do? What am I supposed to do? And that's the last thing you want a consumer to do if you're a console manufacturer, is be confused by what they should purchase and what they shouldn't.
Well, I was even like, why would you invest in the Slim knowing that this new, better console's coming out
Unless you
a year later? Unless you just like don't have like a 4K TV or whatever.
You don't have a 4K TV, and in theory, it'll be a little bit more expensive. I'd imagine them talking about how powerful it is. And so maybe it's like, if you want the cheaper route and you like white, think it'll look nice. Go ahead
but
and
that was
dive
just like,
now.
it gave me no reason to be interested in the Slim. And then I just kind of got mad because I was like, really, a new console? I'm not ready for new consoles right now.
But it's not really a new console.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too, is like I said, their messaging on that is just all over the place.
Yeah, even in the Slim messaging, they were talking about 4K playback, all this stuff. So then they go to Scorpio and like, what is going on here?
But the way that Phil Spencer from Microsoft pitched it was interesting, where he said that they're looking to the future beyond the concept of generations. So they're taking the Daenerys Stormborn approach and breaking the wheel instead of just assembling it.
They keep comparing it to like cell phones and people upgrading cell phones so often to the new model. But I was just like, well, a console is very different than a cell phone, I guess, I suppose, in my eyes.
Yeah, and I heard an interview on Giant Bomb with Phil Spencer where he addressed that and the cell phone comparison. He's like, we're not going for like an annual release and an annual update of this thing. Don't use cell phones as a comparison. And also, as for why they announced two, his angle was that he just wanted to be transparent. He's like, I don't want to keep these secrets. Granted, there were leaks all over the place before this for those guys. But they're like, we wanted to be transparent with our fans so that when we announce Scorpio next year, everyone's not like, what the hell? I just bought the Slim, the 1S. What are you doing? And so they, in theory, sided with, just being completely transparent about the whole thing. But Andy, were you persuaded by the Scorpio? Do you think it's a good idea?
I mean, I think for Scorpio and Microsoft, there were certainly, I think, some flaws in their approach. If you were to ask me, like, to plan an event, I would not have ended with Scorpio, especially if you tell me this, like, they did it to be transparent. Then it's like, hey, everybody, before you leave, let's just be quick and transparent about what our plans are, as opposed to like ending on a high note, right? You know what I mean? And maybe they thought Scorpio was the high note, but for me, Scorpio and Neo, which Neo was not at Sony's, but it's been leaked and then people have talked about it. I think it's a bit of a scary thing for console people, kind of, I think overall, at least or like from what I expect from console. Like I expect to spend a lot of money on my PC, right? And I expect to kind of deal with that. And I know they said, hey, this isn't PC or hey, this isn't phones or whatever kind of thing. But I mean, it definitely introduces a lot of challenges, I think, for game developers. And some things will be easy. And in some cases, it'll be like, oh, I just made it 4K and spit it out and it works in 4K now and didn't before. But I mean, like when they scream out, like, it's got all these teraflops and all this stuff. And like to think, will someone then not make games for that? Because 40 million people own, the older version, and there's only like 2 million people that own this newer version. Why spend all this effort to make the game so much better on that version and test multiple versions and actually not push the hardware that you had on the original? Because that's one of the things that's great about consoles. At the end of a generation, you're like, whoa, like you guys got good at this, right? Like the platform, you really started to understand it and you started to like be good at it, be great at it, right? And so I'm scared of that. And for that to be the thing that they end on, for me, I'm more like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like where are we going? What are you saying? And for them to have such a confusing message for everyone here, and I think confusing message for the consumer, and even at the same time to go like, it's the same Xbox. No, really, Scorpio, it's just another Xbox. You know what I mean? It is, well, no, it's not. You're up there screaming all these like stats.
Yeah, but then they have that message, no gamer left behind.
Yeah.
All Scorpio games will work on all the other systems. And it's like, what is this? Like you're powering up and then nothing.
But I mean, is it that different from just having a medium graphical setting on a PC game versus ultra.
I would agree with that there's things like that along those lines, but we're also seeing a lot of games where like they're shipping buggy between console and PC. That Inafune obviously has trouble putting it on multiple platforms.
The
right?
rain's going to look great on the Scorpio.
you know, like, and so like we're talking about, and we kind of, I think fairly, we're like, hey, that's a lot of platforms. Like we're now adding more platforms for every developer out there, and I think that's a scary prospect, right? And it's also scary in that, like, okay, I go buy a Scorpio, and then or a Neo, right? I buy either one. And then you don't put all the effort into making that like significantly better than the current one, I'm going to be pissed too. Like, I'm just trying to figure out how they're making the consumer happy. I don't understand how it serves the consumer, I think is ultimately my problem with where we're going. And I think Microsoft, obviously, they've admitted that they're kind of, they're behind this generation. PlayStation is kind of running. We've got NX on the horizon. Things are, coming, a storm is coming of change, right? And I think Microsoft was like, well, what do we got to lose? Like, we're changing, we're Scorpio, right? But at the same time, too, to that message of, well, and it's the same, right, is really confusing and is the opposite of what I said I want out of E3. I want to see where things are going, not be given this mysterious thing that sounds great. I mean, because by the way, I love technology. Everyone's going to think I'm being all like poo-poo head about this whole thing. But
you're wearing a Fitbit. Clearly, you love technology.
It's like I'm in on technology, and I'm willing to spend money on consoles, right? But I also think that game consoles get the best at the end, right? Like that's when consoles rock, is when they go down in price, when more people can play them, when games are finding more success than ever, and when the developers have mastered all the intricacies of the software and the OS to make the best games they can possibly make. And we're not even there yet. And it's already the water is already muddied, and it annoys me, in case you didn't notice.
So you want that roller coaster slow climb to the end of the generation and then the reset. You just like that pacing, that rhythm for consumers.
Look at
that's what I know, right?
Yeah,
Not to interrupt Reiner. I mean, that's what I know. And so, like, if you're gonna say, here's the new thing, it's Scorpio, it's Neo, which, by the way, sounds like I'm talking about an old thing, because Scorpio and Neo are the worst like things ever.
They're edgy.
They're not that edgy, right? Because in the one I see Matt Helgeson when he wore the game. Sorry, it's an old reference. Is Scorpio, right? And Neo, I only see obviously the one, right? And so, but not only are those things annoying, but neither of them are showing why it's the future, right? And so maybe that is the future. Right? Maybe Scorpio is for me. Maybe I'm super excited about it. Maybe it does change the way that video games are done. But nobody freaking knows that, right? I mean, like, nobody knows, because they came up and went, 6 teraflops, blah, blah, blah. And like, Scorpio is dumb.
What were you going to say, Renner?
Oh, just looking at the arc of like Naughty Dog on PS3 from Uncharted to Last of Us, and it's like, oh my God, they came a long way and figured out that machine and what to do. Yes, maybe getting more power will allow them to do that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe, or are they going to try something different? You know what I mean? Like, are they going to not, like, okay, this is the sandbox we know, we're going to stick with that and just make it better, better, better? Will they keep kind of expanding their scope and not really be pushing that, what they can do in that one little area?
Yeah.
And they will, you're right. They will make the best Last of Us 2 on PlayStation Neo, right?
Right.
But what about The Last of Us on PlayStation 4? Right? You know what I mean? Like I'm not so much worried about that one for like 2 million people. I'm worried about what does that divide mean for everyone, right?
Playing
like,
on an iPhone 4, some new iOS game, and it's just
and like what that does to the lowest common denominator, what that makes those games. I mean, like remember Call of Duty on Wii U? Do you remember that when they were like, or it's on Wii? It was on Wii.
Right.
And they were like, we're gonna put this on Wii, and you were like, you're gonna what? You were gonna what? And they did it, and you were like, this is as awful as I thought it would be, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not to say that like Neo and PlayStation 4 is that kind of divide. But I mean, at one point, do the developers go, well, we made a bunch of technology, we made a bunch of cool stuff. Here it is, it works here. Oh my gosh, we have like 5 months left. We need to get the PlayStation 4 one to work. All right. Okay. All right. Well, this is good enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It hurts games. I mean, we want to have everyone to have good games. We don't want,
But if it's all in the same pool, and in theory you can play these games that are coming out, even if it's designed for Scorpio and whatnot, isn't that ultimately better for consumers than just pulling the original Xbox strategy of just rebooting after 4 years and releasing the next console, which has the hard line and people cannot play? It's like, This is just an option to get a better looking version of these games instead of you won't be able to play these games at all unless you buy this new console.
That's an interesting question.
I mean, I think that's a hard line they've made to some degree. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, there's no reason a game has to die, right? I mean, I think we've seen back catalogs stay and last and be important from anywhere from Steam to even like the introduction of the back catalog games that they've been putting on Xbox, and people have been like thrilled about like multi-disc games are coming out and just like all that stuff. I mean, I'm not asking for those games to die with those platforms, right? I just want to make sure that when we're moving forward, that it is moving forward and making sense and not leaving people behind and not dividing what we have. Whereas like before, the line in the sand was pretty clear. I mean, we just now got rid of PlayStation 3 Destiny. Like with the next,
right.
you know what I mean? Like, I mean, like that lasted for a long time. But I mean, let's look at Destiny as a great example. Destiny's also been hampered significantly by its support of PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. And they even have at their studio, they have their own, like they build on their own box, like kind of like their own platform that is designed to output to those 4 systems so they can support and build all their tools and everything to work across that whole mess, right? Of cross-generational, right? And so if this next, Scorpio or Neo makes everyone do those kind of boxes and kind of limits the games to some degree, I mean, that's my concern, right?
Yeah.
I'm not concerned about the great game that only does it on there. That I know is going to be good because teraflops, right? Like that's amazing, right? But it's the stuff that gets left behind or what it drags down.
That's the feeling
out of the new new stuff.
Developers every generation aren't going to be like liberated again. Like, oh my god, look at all this RAM, we can go now. It's just going to be this slow trudging along, carrying all these older systems, kind of, sort of along with them.
You're going to be drooling, but carrying just too much baggage.
Yeah, I mean, 6 years from now, it's going to be such a weird scene. I mean, we don't know too much about the rumored PlayStation Neo and all that stuff, but in theory, the two bigs are thinking along the exact same lines, right?
I think they're thinking as VR. I mean, I really do think that it is, to a degree, 4K TVs, but I think, you kept hearing it during the Scorpio reveal. It was Todd Howard out there, VR, we're going to play VR. And again, they were being very cryptic in what devices, like, are you
In
making
theory,
your own
Oculus
proprietary?
Rift.
But it can't be Todd Howard with Oculus, obviously, so Vive, Microsoft proprietary, I don't know. I'm confused.
Yeah. I don't know if it's going to be a revolution of the HoloLens or if they're just going to partner there. They have that partnership with Oculus, but no one really knows.
But again, if it only plays on Scorpio, you're leaving gamers behind and your messaging is bunk right there.